Hi, welcome to Stampin Smiles by Jackie. Today I'm going to continue with my beginner series. Last week I did a video on how to open an ink pad, and as you know, the Stampin Up Classic ink pad, as well as this, the Stampin Up Archival ink pad, have a pretty tricky kind of opening, and it's good to know how to open your ink pad, or else you can't even get to your ink. But now that we know how to open our ink pads, what's next? Well, let's learn how to stamp. And I've chosen two, what I feel are rather, more difficult stamps to stamp with. So, basically, I can, show you some easy tricks to... Hi, Corey. Nice to see you. Some easy tricks to, getting them to stamp right, and getting also, and why you might run into some troubles if you don't actually tap the ink pads right. But the first thing I'm going to do is, this is a brand new photopolymer stamp. I just got it yesterday. So I'm going to start off by priming my stamp, and that's just basically going over it with an eraser. And you should do this with all your photopolymers before you use them for the first time. And then just rub it off, clean it off in the, I'm just off in the distance cleaning it off in my Stampin' Scrub. So now it's all cleaned off and it's primed, ready to go. That's just one of those things with the photopolymer. Now the other thing is this one and this one. If you look at them both, they have a lot of edge to them. So you're not going to want to really smush them into the ink pads. The last thing you want is to have a whole bunch of haloing or ink around the edges, or even in between. This one even prints in between if you happen to get ink in between. So that's why I chose that one. It's particularly difficult. Now, I'm going to start with this stamp, and we're just going to stamp it onto this piece of cardstock, which is just to make a one-layer picture. Just a quick one-layer picture. That's all we're going to do. It's just really to teach you how to actually get the stamps on. Now, with this size of a stamp, just because of the sheer size of it, I'm going to go with leaving the stamp upside down. And stamp this way because I'm less likely to get ink over it. Now notice I'm not really pressing hard. I'm just doing light taps. And then you just keep going, and then always check. You can see here that I missed the center. Somehow the center is not printing. So maybe I need to put just a little bit more pressure on, but not... You don't want to add too much pressure. Better to err on the side of lightness, because you can always add ink, rather than go too dark. And I'm still having trouble getting that central part inked. Okay, it looks like it's all inked now. The next thing I would do is hold it with the light and see if it's all covered, and I can see that that's all covered. And I'm also looking around the edge at the same time. I want to look for shiny around the edge. Anything shiny around the edge indicates I may have ink along my edges, but it doesn't look like it. It looks fairly clean, so I'm going to go ahead and stamp it now. And this one, because it's a larger stamp, I do feel that larger stamps need just a little bit more pressure than, so I stand up to stamp them. I'm standing up right now. Corey, haloing is basically the, when the, ink goes around the outside, and it comes from actually holding your stamp pad or your stamp when you're putting it into your stamp pad at an angle. And what happens is you get ink on the edge, and you get haloing. Let's see how that came out. Okay, that came out good. And notice because we were careful with our ink, we didn't over pressurize it. I'm going to do an actual, grab a piece of scrap paper and do like what happens if you don't be careful with the ink. But this one, this photopolymer stamp that I'm going to use, I'm going to use it with the archival ink. There's a bit of a difference between inking with the archival than there is with the regular Stampin' pads. And it's just because it's got a different surface. It's not a sponge. It's more like a woven surface on a hard felt core. And I find you have to bang it a little bit more. Like really give it a bit of a bang. And it doesn't sink into the stamp pad as much with this one. So this one actually is one that I do bang. But then I check. And I see that it looks like I got ink all over the stamp. And by looks of things, I can't see any sign of ink on the outside of the writing. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this now. And I've never stamped the stamp before, which is why I had to prime it. So I haven't experimented to find out what the stamp's weaknesses are. You get to know your stamp's weaknesses and you can compensate for them once you know them. I'm just going to stamp that on. Now it looks like thing is actually not quite inked properly. So my guess is the word thing is going to be partially unstamped. Yeah, that was terrible. Okay, that was a really bad job, but you know what? Cardstock has two sides, and I'm really not even trying to make a picture here for a card. I'm really just showing inking and stamping, so we will try again. Now I'm basically doing this pretty well, tapping hard, which is what you have to do with the archival. I'm looking, it looks black. I'm going to try it again just to see if I can get this one to actually ink. Never used this stamp before. It's brand new to me, so bear with me. Hi, Jamie. Okay, it looks like this one doesn't like to work with the archival ink. I have this trouble with photopolymer, and sometimes I can get around it by putting some like cleaning off the ink and then putting some Versamark on it. Versamark sometimes makes it more likely to stamp than. See, I'm even learning about this stamp right now because I've never used it before. You guys are forcing me to learn stuff. Ha 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 ha. You didn't know you had a plot in my life, did you? Okay, now I'm putting some Versamark on this. It seems to be a way to get photopolymers to actually ink off. I'm going to try it again now that we got the Versamark on it. Oops, and now I stuck my whole finger in there. And I'm probably going to get some haloing with this because I can see it's actually picked up some ink somewhere else. Okay, so that seems to be the trick. Put some Versamark on first. Some of my stamps are more stubborn than others, and I get to know which ones I have to Versamark first and which ones I don't. This looks like another one of those stamps that if I want to get a nice image, I'm going to have to Versamark. And that's a good hack to know. Versamark ink and photopolymer stamps are friends. They work really well together if you have trouble with... And it's sold through the catalog, I believe. I don't think it retired. Alright, the primer stamp, Jamie. Yep, primer stamp. Prime it first of all with the eraser, and then after that, yeah, put Versamark on. And definitely, if you find your stamp starts to lose its ability to pick up on ink and lay ink, do go with the priming with the Versamark. Yeah, anyway, there we got this image beautiful. This image was beautiful on the first shot. But this is rubber. Rubber's a little bit of a different thing to photopolymer. And I was using a much more difficult ink because the archival ink, I must admit, is a lot harder to stamp off. So, that's where I'm going to end it. But that's what I wanted to show you. And then I also wanted to I'm just going to do it with this stamp. What happens... Oh, where is my, oh, here it is. What happens with either side stamp, I'm just going to put this over everything else, just on the same paper, so we're just not wasting paper. This is what happens when you mush the pad, and that means really tap it too hard. If you, put a lot of pressure on, notice how you end up getting ink all over the ink pad. And you might think that this edge surface is not raised. But if I go to stamp this, you're going to find out, once you put pressure on it, I mean, you have to put enough pressure on to print the stamp. I didn't do it. I didn't fully stamp, though. There's some haloing right there. It's not as bad as it sometimes is. I mean, that was supposed to be the horrible example, but you know what? It didn't print as much as it normally does. It's funny, when I don't really want it to print, it actually does halo, but this is a little bit of halo right here. And what, yeah, Jamie, what they mean by haloing is these edges printing off is called haloing. And basically it means it's surrounded by lines. It's got a line around the rim. And sometimes you get haloing in between, Thanks a lot for joining me, and do have a good day, and I hope you learned something through this. Actually, this stamp went really easy on us, considering how much that ink should have printed off. None of it printed off on the edge, but normally it does. So, don't smush your ink into the stamp. That's all I'm going to say as parting words. Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.